The message came on a Tuesday morning. It was not a friendly message. The words were cold and hard like stones thrown from across the stars. Every screen on Earth showed the same thing at the same time. A face appeared. It was not a human face. It was something else, something old, something angry. The face belonged to Queen of the Empire. Her skin was pale blue, smooth like glass. Her eyes were large and black with no white parts at all. She had no hair. Instead, thin antennae rose from her head, moving slowly like plants in water. Behind her stood warriors in dark armor. They did not move. They did not blink. "Humans," the queen said. Her voice was calm, but there was danger in it. "You have made a terrible mistake. Your people have built homes on the fourth moon of 9. You call this moon New Hope. We call it something else. We call it the resting place of our ancestors. It is sacred ground, holy ground, and you have put your dirty feet upon it." The queen paused. Her black eyes seemed to look at every person on Earth at the same time. "For this crime there is only one punishment. Your kind will be removed from the universe. Every human, every colony, every ship, all of it will burn. This is not a threat. This is a promise." Then the screen went black. Panic spread across Earth like fire through dry grass. People screamed, people cried. Leaders held emergency meetings. Military commanders prepared their ships, but everyone knew the truth. The Empire was ancient. They had conquered 1,000 worlds. Their weapons could destroy planets. Humanity had only been traveling among the stars for 200 years. They were like children fighting giants. In a small room in the United Earth headquarters, a young man sat alone. His name was Minyu. He was 28 years old. He had dark hair that fell across his forehead and kind eyes that always seemed to be thinking about something far away. Minyu was a diplomat. His job was to talk to alien species and find peaceful solutions to problems. But he was not important. He was new to the job. He had never even met a before. Yet Minyu was not afraid. He was reading. On his screen were thousands of files about their history, their culture, their language, their beliefs. Minyu had been studying them for 3 years, ever since he first heard about their empire. Most humans thought they were simply monsters, killers, destroyers, but Minyu saw something else in the old records. He saw a pattern. They had no word for forgiveness. This was true, but they had 17 different words for sacrifice. They had poetry about warriors who died for their people. They had songs about queens who gave everything for their children. They were not monsters. They were a people who valued sacrifice above all else. Minyu stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city was chaos, but inside his mind an idea was growing. 3 hours later, Minyu stood before the Earth Council. The room was full of the most powerful people on the planet, presidents, generals, scientists. They all looked tired and scared. "I will go," Minyu said simply. The room went quiet. "What did you say?" asked General, an old man with gray hair and hard eyes. I will speak to their queen. I will try to save us." Laughter filled the room, but it was not happy laughter. It was the laughter of people who had lost hope. "You are a junior diplomat," said President, a woman with a stern face. "You have never even left Earth. Why should we send you?" Minyu took a deep breath. "Because I understand them. They do not want to simply kill us. If they did, they would not have sent a warning. They would have just attacked. They sent a message because they want something. They want us to acknowledge our crime. They want us to show respect. I can do that. I can speak to them in a way they understand." The council members looked at each other. They did not believe him, but they also had no other options. Every senior diplomat had already refused to go. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew that whoever went to the would never come back. "I will go with him." A woman stepped forward from the back of the room. She was tall, with long black hair tied back in a practical style. Her name was. She was 30 years old and worked as a. She studied alien life. She was brilliant, respected, and completely calm despite the fear that filled the room. The mission will need a scientist, said. Someone who can understand biology and culture from a scientific perspective. I volunteer. Minyu looked at her with surprise. They had met only twice before, at boring government events. He did not know why she would risk her life for him. Meta's eyes. I read your research papers on communication patterns, she said quietly. You might actually be right, and if there is even a small chance you can save us, someone should be there to help you. The council debated for 6 more hours. In the end, they had no choice. No one else was willing to go. They gave Minyu and a ship called the Horizon and a crew of 50 brave volunteers. Captain Park would command the ship. He was a serious man who rarely smiled, but his crew trusted him with their lives. The night before they left, Minyu sat alone in his small apartment. He held a photograph in his hands. It showed a young girl with a bright smile and curious eyes. Her name was Sora. She was his younger sister. She had died 5 years ago in a colony accident far from Earth. Minyu had not been able to save her. He had not even been able to say goodbye. I could not protect you, Minyu whispered to the photograph. But maybe I can protect everyone else. Maybe this time I can be brave enough. He put the photograph in his pocket, close to his heart. He would carry it with him across the stars. He would carry it into the throne room of the most dangerous queen in the galaxy. And he would not be afraid. The next morning, the Horizon left Earth. Millions of people watched it disappear into the dark sky. They did not cheer. They did not wave. They simply watched in silence, wondering if they would ever see those brave humans again. Inside the ship, Minyu stood at a window and looked back at the blue planet that was his home. Somewhere down there, people were going about their lives, hoping that a young diplomat could do the impossible. Minyu touched the photograph in his pocket and made a silent promise. He would not let them down. He would find a way. He would save humanity or he would die trying. The stars stretched out before him, cold and endless, and somewhere among them a queen was waiting. The journey took 14 days. 14 days of cold space and quiet fear. The crew of the Horizon tried to act normal. They ate their meals together. They played cards. They told jokes, but everyone knew the truth. They were flying toward their death. Minyu spent most of his time in his small room studying. He read everything he could find about their history went back 50,000 years. They had built empires when humans were still living in caves. They had conquered species that humanity had never even heard of. And they had never, not once in all their long history, shown mercy to an enemy. But Minyu kept reading. He was looking for something, a crack in the wall, a door that no one else had seen, and slowly he began to find it. There were not one simple thing. They were complicated like all living beings. They had art. They had music. They had stories about love and loss. They buried their dead with flowers and sang songs that lasted for hours. They were warriors, yes, but they were also poets. They were also grieving children who missed their ancestors. Visited Minyu every evening. She would bring him tea and sit with him while he worked. She did not talk much. She simply kept him company. In those quiet moments, Minyu was grateful. He had spent most of his life alone. His parents died when he was young. His sister died when he was 23. He had learned to be strong by himself, but it was nice, he realized, to have someone nearby. On the 12th day, asked him a question. Why did you really volunteer for this? Minyu was quiet for a long time. Then he took out the photograph of his sister and showed it too. Her name was Sora, he said. She wanted to see the stars. She went to work on a colony ship when she was 18. There was an accident, a fire. She did not survive. Looked at the photograph. The girl in the picture was smiling so brightly. I am sorry, said softly. I was on Earth when it happened, Minyu continued. I was too far away to help. I could not save her. I could not even hold her hand at the end. I have carried that guilt with me every day since then. He paused and looked out the window at the stars. When they sent their message, I knew I had to go. I could not save Sora, but maybe I can save everyone else. Maybe I can finally do something that matters. did not say anything. She simply reached out and put her hand on his shoulder. They sat together in silence until the stars outside began to change color. On the 14th day, the horizon arrived at the... It was the most beautiful and terrifying planet Minyu had ever seen. The surface was covered with massive towers that looked like they were made of bone and shell. Rivers of glowing blue liquid flowed between the structures. The sky was purple and filled with strange flying creatures. Everything looked alive. Everything looked dangerous. A warship met them in orbit. It was 10 times larger than the horizon. Its weapons were pointed directly at them. "Human vessel," a voice said over the communication system. "You will follow us. Any attempt to escape will result in your immediate destruction. Any attempt to fight will result in your immediate destruction. Do you understand?" Captain looked at Minyu. His face was calm, but his hands were tight on his chair. "We understand," Minyu replied. "We come in peace. We wish only to speak with your queen." There was a long silence. Then the voice spoke again. This time there was something like curiosity in it. "Peace, interesting word. Follow us, human. The queen is waiting." The horizon followed the warship down through the purple sky. They landed on a platform made of the same bone-like material as the towers. Immediately, they were surrounded by warriors. Minyu had seen pictures of them, but seeing them in person was different. They were tall, almost 3 meters high. Their bodies were covered with hard shells that shone like metal. They had 4 arms each, and their hands ended in sharp claws. Their faces were smooth and expressionless, with large black eyes that reflected everything like mirrors. "You are smaller than I expected," one of the warriors said. Her voice was female, strong and cold. She wore armor that was more decorated than the others. "I am commander. I will take you to the queen. If you try anything foolish, I will kill you myself. Do you understand?" "I understand," Minyu said. He kept his voice calm and respectful. "Thank you for escorting us, Commander." Made a sound that might have been surprise. No one had ever thanked her before. She did not know how to respond, so she simply turned and began walking. Minyu and followed. They walked through the alien city for almost an hour. Everywhere they went, stopped and stared at them. Some looked curious. Most looked angry. Children pointed at them and asked their parents what the strange creatures were. Parents pulled their children close and whispered words of warning. Finally, they reached the palace. It was the largest structure Minyu had ever seen. It rose so high that its top disappeared into the clouds. Its walls were covered with carvings of ancient battles and long-dead heroes. At its entrance stood 2 statues of queens from ages past. Their stone eyes seemed to judge everyone who passed between them. Inside, the palace was even more impressive. The halls were lit by floating lights that moved on their own. The floors were polished until they reflected like water, and everywhere there were guards, thousands of them. They stood perfectly still, watching the humans with cold, patient eyes. At last they reached the throne room. It was a massive circular chamber. The ceiling was so high that it looked like the sky. The walls were lined with glass cases, and inside each case was a body. Minyu realized with a chill that these were the preserved bodies of enemies the queen had defeated. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Species he recognized and species he had never seen. All of them dead. All of them displayed like trophies. And at the center of the room, on a throne made of black crystal, sat Queen. She was ancient. Minyu could see it in the way she held herself, in the weight of her eyes, in the slowness of her movements. She had lived for thousands of years. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had killed more living beings than Minyu could imagine. And now she was looking at him with those deep black eyes, and he felt smaller than he had ever felt in his life. "So," the queen said, her voice filled the entire room without effort, "you are the human they sent to beg for mercy." Minyu stepped forward. His heart was beating fast, but he kept his face calm. "I am Minyu," he said. "I am a diplomat from Earth, but I did not come to beg." The queen tilted her head slightly. This was unexpected. Then why did you come, little human? Minyu thought about his sister. He thought about Earth. He thought about all the people who were counting on him. Then he did something that no alien had ever done in this throne room. He bowed. Not a quick, fearful bow, a deep, respectful bow, the kind of bow you give to someone you truly respect, the kind of bow you give to a grieving elder, the kind of bow that says, I see your pain, I honor your loss, I understand. When he stood up again, the room was completely silent. I came, Minyu said quietly, to tell you that I am sorry, not because I am afraid of death, but because your ancestors deserved better. Your sacred place deserved respect. We did not know, but that does not erase the wrong, and for that I am truly sorry. Queen did not speak for a very long time. Her black eyes studied Minyu like he was a puzzle she could not solve. No one had ever spoken to her this way. No one had ever apologized without begging. No one had ever treated her like a person instead of a monster. Finally, she leaned forward on her throne. Interesting, she whispered. Very interesting indeed. And for the first time in 1,000 years, Queen smiled. The smile on Queen's face did not last long. It faded quickly, replaced by something harder, something older. The council members around her shifted nervously. They had never seen their queen smile at an enemy before. It worried them. Your words are pretty, human, the queen said. But words are easy. They cost nothing. They prove nothing. She stood from her throne and walked down the steps toward Minyu. Each step echoed through the silent room. If you truly wish to save your people, you must do more than speak. You must prove that humanity deserves to exist. Minyu stood his ground as the queen approached. She was so much taller than him, so much stronger. She could kill him with one hand, but he did not step back. He did not look away. How can I prove this? He asked. The queen stopped just a few feet from him. Up close, he could see the fine lines on her blue skin. Thousands of years of life written on her face. Thousands of years of loss and victory and loneliness. There is an ancient tradition among my people, she said. The test of worth. It was created long ago to judge whether a species deserved to exist or should be erased. The tests are difficult. They are designed for bodies, minds. In all of history, no alien has ever passed. I will take the test, Minyu said without hesitation. Commander stepped forward. This is foolish, she said to the queen. He is weak, small. He will die in the first trial. Let me simply execute him and be done with it. But the queen raised her hand and went silent. No, the queen said. She was still looking at Minyu with those deep black eyes. Let him try. I want to see what this strange little creature can do. The first test began the next morning. It was called the Trial of Endurance. Minyu was taken to a place called the Burning Caves. It was a network of tunnels deep beneath the palace, where hot steam rose from cracks in the ground and the air was thick and hard to breathe. The temperature was twice as hot as any desert on Earth. There was no food, no water, nothing but rock and heat and darkness. You must survive here for 3 days, Commander told him. Her voice had no pity in it. No help, no tools, no tricks. If you survive, you pass. If you die, your species dies with you. Simple. Minyu nodded. He had known this was coming. He had studied the trial of endurance before leaving Earth. He knew he could not match strength or resistance to heat, but he had something else, something that did not understand. He had the human will to survive. I am ready, he said. Pushed him into the cave entrance. The stone door closed behind him with a heavy boom, and just like that, Minyu was alone. Outside the caves was frantic. She paced back and forth in the small room they had been given, trying to think of a way to help. The horizon was still in orbit, and Captain had offered to send supplies, but Minyu had forbidden it. If I cheat, they will know, he had told her before entering the caves. They respect honor. They respect facing death with courage. I have to do this the right way. The right way will get you killed, had replied, her voice shaking. Minyu had smiled at her then, a sad, gentle smile. Maybe, but if I die with honor, maybe they will remember that. Maybe it will matter. So waited and worried and hoped. Inside the caves, Minyu walked. He could not stand still because the ground was too hot. His shoes began to melt after the first few hours. He tore pieces from his shirt and wrapped them around his feet. It helped a little, not much. The heat was like a living thing. It pressed against him from all sides. It filled his lungs with every breath. Sweat poured from his body, and soon his clothes were soaked through. He knew he was losing water fast. He knew that humans could only survive a few days without water. He knew the odds were against him. But Minyu kept walking. He talked to himself to stay sane. He recited old poems his mother had taught him. He sang songs from his childhood. He told stories to the darkness, imagining that his sister was there, listening. "Do you remember the time we tried to build a," he said to the empty air. "We were so young. We did not know what we were doing. The whole thing fell down after 2 days." He laughed weakly. "You cried so much, but then you said we should try again. You always said we should try again, Sora, no matter how many times we failed." He found a small pool of water on the second day. It was hot, almost boiling, and it tasted like metal. But it was water. He drank carefully, letting his body cool down just enough to keep going. On the third day, he could barely stand. His feet were burned. His throat was dry. His vision was blurry. Every part of his body screamed at him to stop, to give up, to lie down and let the darkness take him. But he thought about Earth. He thought about waiting for him. He thought about the millions of people who did not even know his name but were counting on him anyway. And he kept walking. When the stone door finally opened, Minyu collapsed on the ground outside. He could not move. He could barely breathe, but he was alive. Commander stood over him, her face unreadable. She had expected to find a corpse. Instead, she found a broken, burned, exhausted human who had refused to die. "How?" she demanded. "How did you survive? You are weak. You should not have lasted 1 day." Minyu looked up at her through swollen eyes. He managed a small smile. "Humans are stubborn," he whispered. "We do not know when to quit." Stared at him for a long moment. Then she turned and walked away without another word. That night, reported to Queen in private. "He did not cheat," said. "I watched him through the monitoring systems the entire time. He simply walked. For 3 days he walked. When his shoes melted, he wrapped his feet in cloth. When he found water, he drank just enough to survive. When he was tired, he talked to himself to stay awake." The queen was silent, sitting in her private chambers. On the wall hung ancient paintings of heroes who had completed the same trial thousands of years ago. Warriors, legends. And now, a small human diplomat had joined their ranks. "What did he talk about?" the queen asked. His sister replied, "A girl named Sora, she is dead. He talked to her as if she could hear him. He told her stories, he made her promises." Paused. It was strange, foolish, but also she could not find the right word. "Brave," the queen said quietly. "It was brave." That night, Queen watched the recordings herself. She watched Minyu stumble through the burning darkness. She watched him wrap his bleeding feet and drink the terrible water. She watched him talk to his dead sister with such love and sadness that something in her ancient heart began to crack. She had a daughter once, long ago before she became queen. Her daughter had the same kind of love in her eyes, the same stubborn hope, the same refusal to give up. Her daughter was gone now, dead in a war that the queen had won but could never forget. And this human, this tiny fragile creature from a young and foolish species, reminded her of everything she had lost. Queen turned off the recording and sat alone in the darkness. For the first time in centuries, she did not know what to do. In the medical room where Minyu was recovering, sat by his bed and held his hand. His fingers were bandaged, his face was pale, but he was breathing, he was alive. "You are an idiot," said softly. "A brave, wonderful idiot." Minyu opened his eyes just a little. He saw her face above him, worried and tired and beautiful. "Did I pass?" he asked. "You passed," said, and she smiled through her tears. "You actually passed." Minyu smiled back and closed his eyes again. One trial down, two more to go. He would rest now. He would heal, and then he would face whatever came next. Because that is what humans do. They endure, they survive, they keep going no matter what. And Minyu was not going to let his species down. 3 days passed while Minyu recovered. The doctors did not want to help him at first. He was an enemy, a lesser creature. Why should they waste their medicine on him? But Queen gave the order, and no one questioned the Queen. So they healed his burns and gave him clean water and let him rest in a small room near the palace. Stayed with him as much as she could. She brought him food from the horizon and told him news from home. Captain sent messages every day, asking about their progress. The crew was nervous but hopeful. Word had spread through the galaxy that a human had survived the trial of endurance. Other species were watching now, waiting to see what would happen next. On the 4th night, something unexpected happened. Minyu was alone in his room looking at the photograph of his sister. The lights were dim, the palace was quiet, and then the door opened. Queen stood in the doorway. She was not wearing her royal armor. She had no guards with her. She looked almost ordinary, if something so ancient and powerful could ever look ordinary. Her movements were slow and careful as she stepped into the room and closed the door behind her. Minyu tried to stand, but she raised her hand. "Do not get up," she said. "You are still injured, and I did not come here as your queen." Minyu settled back onto his bed. "Then why did you come?" Was quiet for a moment. She walked to the window and looked out at the glowing city below. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass, old and tired. "I have ruled this empire for 3,000 years, she said finally. "I have conquered 47 species. I have destroyed 12 planets. I have won every war, every battle, every fight. No one has ever defeated me." She turned to look at Minyu. "But you are different. You did not try to defeat me. You tried to understand me, and that I do not know how to fight." Minyu stayed silent. He could feel that this was important, that the Queen was saying something she had never said to anyone before. "Why did you volunteer for this mission?" asked. "Tell me the truth, not the answer you gave your council, the real answer." Minyu thought carefully. Then he reached into his pocket and took out the photograph of Sora. He held it up so the Queen could see. "This is my sister," he said. "Her name was Sora. She died 5 years ago in an accident far from home. I was not there when it happened. I could not save her. I could not even say goodbye." The Queen looked at the photograph. Her black eyes studied the smiling face of the young girl. "She looks happy," said softly. "She was," Minyu replied. "She was the happiest person I ever knew. She believed that the universe was full of wonders. She believed that every species, every world, every life was precious." He paused. "When she died, I lost more than a sister. I lost my faith in everything. For years I was empty, broken. I did not care if I lived or died." "What changed?" the Queen asked. "I started reading about other species," Minyu said. "About how they lived, how they loved, how they grieved. And I realized something. Every species in the universe has lost someone they loved. Every species knows pain. Every species knows sorrow. We are all connected by our suffering." He looked directly at the Queen. "When I read about I saw your pain too. I saw how you honor your ancestors. I saw the songs you sing for the dead. I understood that your anger comes from the same place as my grief. You are not monsters, you are just like us. You are hurt." Queen did not speak for a long time. She stood very still like a statue carved from blue stone, but something in her eyes had changed. Something had cracked. "You speak of grief as if you understand it," she finally said. "But you are young. You have lived barely 30 years. What can you know of loss that lasts for centuries?" Minyu did not look away. "I know that grief does not care how old you are. I know that losing someone you love feels the same whether you are 30 or 3,000. I know that my sister has been dead for 5 years, but I still hear her voice every night before I sleep. I know that I will carry her with me until I die. Is that so different from what you feel for your ancestors?" The queen closed her eyes. For a moment she looked almost human, almost fragile. "I had a daughter," she said quietly. The words came out slowly like stones pulled from deep water. "Her name was Lyra. She was brave and kind and full of hope. She believed, like your sister, that every life was precious. She wanted to change our empire. She wanted to end the conquering and build something better." Minyu listened without interrupting. "There was a war," the queen continued. "An old enemy attacked Lyra led the defense while I was away with our fleet. She saved millions of lives, but she did not survive. When I returned, I found her body in the ruins of our capital. She had died protecting her people." The queen opened her eyes. They were wet. In 3,000 years, Minyu was the first person to ever see Queen cry. "That was 2,000 years ago," she said. "And not a day has passed that I have not thought of her. Not a night has passed that I have not heard her voice. I have conquered the galaxy to honor her memory. I have destroyed every enemy to prove that her sacrifice was not in vain, but nothing has ever filled the emptiness she left behind." Minyu got up from his bed. His legs were still weak, his body still sore, but he walked to the queen and stood before her. "I am sorry," he said simply. "I am sorry for your loss. I am sorry for your pain. And I am sorry that we put our homes on the place where your ancestors rest. We did not know, but that does not make it right." The queen looked down at him. He was so small compared to her, so fragile, so temporary. But in his eyes she saw something she had not seen in centuries. She saw understanding, she saw kindness, she saw love. "Your sister," she said, "what would she think of what you are doing?" Minyu smiled. It was a sad smile full of old memories. "She would say I am being stupid," he said. "She would say I am risking my life for people I have never met. She would worry about me every second." He paused. "But she would also be proud, because this is who she raised me to be. Someone who believes that everyone deserves a chance, even ancient queens who have forgotten how to hope." Queen reached out and touched Minyu's face. Her hand was cold and hard, covered in the same shell-like material as the rest of her body, but her touch was gentle. "You remind me of her," the queen whispered. "Of my Lyra. She had the same foolish courage, the same stubborn kindness." She pulled her hand back and took a deep breath. "You have passed the first trial, but the second trial awaits. It will be harder, more dangerous. I do not know if you will survive." "I will try," Minyu said. "I know you will," the queen replied. "That is what frightens me." She turned and walked to the door, but before she left, she paused and looked back. "When you talked to your sister in the caves," she said, "I listened. I heard what you told her. I heard the love in your voice." She was quiet for a moment. "I have not loved anyone since Lyra died. I forgot how, but listening to you, I remembered, just for a moment. I remembered what it felt like." And then she was gone, leaving Minyu alone with his thoughts and his photograph, and the strange feeling that something important had just changed. In her private chambers, Queen sat in darkness. She did not call for her guards. She did not summon her advisors. She simply sat, remembering a daughter who died 2,000 years ago and a human who reminded her of everything she had lost. Outside her window, the twin moons of her rose into the purple sky. And for the first time in centuries, the queen of the did not feel alone. The second trial was announced the next morning. It was called the Trial of Combat. Commander delivered the news personally. She stood in Minyu's small room with her 4 arms crossed, looking down at him with cold eyes. "You will face me in single combat," she said, "in the ancient arena before the entire court. If you win, you pass. If you lose, you die, and your species dies with you." Minyu was sitting on his bed, still recovering from the caves. His body was healing, but he was not strong. He was not a fighter. He had never been trained in combat. The idea of facing Commander, who had killed thousands of enemies with her bare hands, was impossible. When? Minyu asked calmly. Tomorrow, replied. Prepare yourself, human, it will be over quickly. After she left, rushed into the room. Her face was pale with worry. You cannot do this, she said. Minyu, this is not like the caves. There is no way to survive through willpower alone. Is a warrior. She has trained her entire life to kill. You are a diplomat. You have trained to talk. I know, Minyu said. Then what are you going to do? Minyu was quiet for a long time. He looked at the photograph of his sister still sitting beside his bed. He thought about everything that had happened. The journey through space, the meeting with the Queen, the burning caves, the midnight conversation. He thought about what he believed, what he stood for, what made humans different from other species. I am going to show them who we really are, he finally said. What does that mean? Demanded. Minyu looked at her with calm eyes. It means I am not going to fight. The next day the arena was packed with thousands of. They had come from all across the empire to watch the strange human be destroyed. The arena was ancient, older than human civilization. Its stone walls were stained with the blood of countless battles. Its floor was hard and cold. High above, Queen sat on a special throne, watching with unreadable eyes. Commander entered first. She wore ceremonial armor that shone like silver. She carried no weapons because she did not need them. Her claws were sharp enough to cut through metal. Her body was strong enough to crush stone. She was the most feared warrior in the empire, and she walked into the arena like death itself. The crowd cheered for her. They chanted her name. They stamped their feet and made the whole arena shake. Then Minyu entered. He walked slowly across the stone floor. He wore no armor. He carried no weapons. He looked exactly like what he was, a small, fragile human who had no business being in a combat arena. The crowd went quiet. Then they began to laugh. This was the creature that had dared to challenge their empire, this weak little thing. Minyu walked to the center of the arena and stopped. He looked up at Queen and bowed, just as he had done in the throne room. Then he turned to face Commander. Are you ready to die? Asked. Her voice was hard and cold. I am ready, Minyu replied. Attacked. She was fast, faster than anything Minyu had ever seen. She crossed the distance between them in less than a second, her claws aimed at his throat. Minyu barely managed to dodge, throwing himself to the side and rolling across the ground. The crowd roared with excitement. Attacked again, and again, and again. Each time, Minyu dodged or blocked or ran. He used everything he had just to stay alive. He used the little bit of self-defense training he had learned on Earth. He used his smaller size to slip under her attacks. He used his quick thinking to predict where she would strike next. But he never attacked back. Minutes passed, grew frustrated. Her attacks became faster, harder, more vicious. She could not understand why this human kept running. In all her years of combat, every enemy she had ever faced tried to fight back. That was what warriors did. That was what living creatures did. They fought. But Minyu did not fight. He dodged, he blocked, he moved. But he never raised a hand against her, he never tried to hurt her. He simply refused to die. Fight me, screamed. Stop running and fight. Minyu's legs were shaking. His lungs were burning. He had cuts on his arms and bruises on his body. He could not last much longer. No, he said. His voice was quiet but clear. Why? Demanded. She stopped attacking, breathing heavily. Why will you not fight? Do you want to die? No, Minyu said. I want to live, but I did not come here to prove that humans can kill. I came here to prove that humans can choose not to kill. That is what makes us different. That is what makes us worth saving. The arena was silent. Everyone was watching. Even Queen leaned forward on her throne, her black eyes fixed on the battered human standing alone in the center of the arena. You are weak, said, but her voice had changed. There was something like confusion in it. Yes, Minyu agreed. By your standards, I am weak. I cannot match your strength. I cannot match your speed. I cannot match your claws or your armor or your 1,000 years of training. But I have something you do not have. I have the choice to be kind, even when I am afraid, even when I am hurt, even when I am about to die. Raised her claws. One strike. That was all it would take. One strike and this foolish human would be dead. One strike and the trial would be over. But she hesitated. She looked at Minyu's eyes. They were not the eyes of a coward. They were not the eyes of someone who had given up. They were the eyes of someone who believed in something so strongly that he was willing to die for it. They were the eyes of someone who would not break, no matter what. Had killed many enemies in her long life. She had killed warriors and kings and generals. She had killed creatures that begged for mercy and creatures that cursed her with their dying breath. But she had never killed someone like this. Someone who looked at her not with hate, but with understanding. Someone who refused to become her enemy, even when she was trying to kill him. Her claws dropped to her sides. "I cannot," she said quietly. "I cannot kill him." The crowd erupted in chaos, shouted in confusion and anger. This was not how trials worked. This was not how combat worked. The human should be dead. Why was he not dead? Queen stood from her throne. The entire arena went silent. "Commander," the queen said, "explain yourself." Turned to face her queen. Her head was bowed, but her voice was steady. "The trial was meant to test his worth," she said, "to see if he would fight like a true warrior. He did not fight, but he also did not surrender. He faced me without weapons, without armor, without hope. And he still refused to become what we wanted him to become." She paused. "I do not understand it, but I cannot call it weakness. I have never seen such strength." The queen was silent for a long moment. Every eye in the arena was on her. The fate of humanity hung in the balance. Finally she spoke. "The trial is invalid," she declared. "The human did not pass, but he did not fail. He chose a third path, a path we did not expect." She looked down at Minyu, standing alone and bleeding in the center of the arena. "The final judgment will be made tomorrow. Take him to the healers." Guards came and helped Minyu out of the arena, was waiting for him at the entrance, tears streaming down her face. "You impossible fool," she whispered, hugging him gently. "You absolute impossible fool." Minyu smiled weakly. "Did it work?" "I do not know," admitted, "but you are alive. Right now, that is enough." That night, Captain contacted them with urgent news. The Horizon was ready to attempt a rescue. They could fight their way to the surface, grab Minyu, and try to escape before the fleet could catch them. "It would mean war," said grimly, "but at least you would have a chance." Minyu thought about it. He thought about the crew who would die trying to save him. He thought about the war that would destroy both species. He thought about his sister, who always believed in hope. "No," he said, "not yet. Give me one more day, I think. I think something is changing here. I can feel it." Was quiet for a long moment, then he nodded. "One more day," he agreed. "But if you do not contact us by sunset tomorrow, we are coming for you, no matter what." The transmission ended. Minyu lay back on his bed and closed his eyes. Tomorrow everything would be decided. Tomorrow he would face the queen one last time. And he still did not know what she would choose. The morning of the judgment came too quickly. Minyu woke before dawn and watched the purple sky slowly brighten through his window. He felt strangely calm. Whatever happened today, he had done everything he could. He had given everything he had. The rest was out of his hands. Came to help him prepare. She had found a clean set of clothes for him, simple but dignified. She helped him dress because his hands were still shaking from the fight with. Neither of them spoke. There was nothing left to say. When it was time, guards came to escort them to the throne room. The walk felt longer than before. Every step echoed through the empty halls. Every shadow seemed darker. The palace felt like a tomb waiting to be filled. The throne room was packed with Not just nobles and warriors, but ordinary citizens too. Word had spread across the planet about the strange human who would not fight, who would not kill, who would not break. They had come from every corner of the empire to see what would happen next. Queen sat on her black crystal throne. She wore her full royal armor, covered in ancient symbols and glowing with inner light. Her face was calm and unreadable. She looked like she had looked for 3,000 years, powerful, ancient, and completely alone. Commander stood to her right. Her head was still bowed from yesterday. She had not spoken since the arena. She did not understand what she was feeling, and it troubled her deeply. Minyu walked through the crowd toward the throne. Every watched him pass. Some looked at him with hate. Some looked at him with curiosity. A few, very few, looked at him with something like respect. He stopped at the base of the throne and waited. "Minyu of Earth," Queen said. Her voice filled the room like thunder. "You have faced 2 trials. You survived the first. The second was declared invalid. Now I must make my judgment. Now I must decide if your species lives or dies." The room was completely silent. Not a single moved. Not a single breath was taken. The queen stood from her throne and began to walk down the steps. Her movements were slow and deliberate. Each step was heavy with the weight of history. She was not just a queen making a decision. She was 3,000 years of power and grief and loneliness, walking toward a single fragile human. "You have broken every expectation," she said as she descended. "You did not beg for mercy like others have. You did not try to fight like others have. You did not scheme or lie or bargain." She reached the bottom of the steps and stood before him. "Instead, you apologized. You bowed. You told me about your sister. You reminded me of things I had forgotten, feelings I had buried." Minyu looked up at her. She was so much larger than him, so much older, so much more powerful. But in that moment she looked almost fragile, almost human. "You have shown me things I have not felt in 1,000 years, the queen continued. Her voice was quieter now, softer. "You have made me remember my daughter. You have made me remember what it was like to love, what it was like to hope, what it was like to be more than just a conqueror." She stepped closer. They were almost touching now. "For that," she whispered, "I should hate you. You have weakened me. You have reminded me of my pain. You have opened wounds that I spent centuries trying to close." Minyu did not step back. He did not look away. "I know," he said softly. "I am sorry." Something changed in the queen's eyes. Something cracked. The wall she had built around herself for 2,000 years began to crumble. And then she did something that no one in the room could have predicted. Something that had not happened in the entire history of the empire. She leaned forward and spoke in his language. In human words. Words she had learned secretly, listening to his conversations, studying his culture, trying to understand this impossible creature who had turned her world upside down. As she whispered, "You will regret this, human." And then she wrapped her arms around him and pulled him into a tight embrace. The throne room exploded into chaos. Warriors shouted in confusion. Nobles gasped in shock. Commander stepped forward and then stopped, not knowing what to do. In 3,000 years of history, no queen had ever embraced an enemy. It was unthinkable. It was impossible. It was happening. Standing at the edge of the room, began to cry. She did not understand exactly what was happening, but she could feel it. Something was changing. Something was healing. Minyu stood frozen in the queen's embrace. Her body was hard and cold, covered in the same shell-like material as all, but her arms were gentle. Her grip was careful. She was holding him like something precious, something she was afraid to break. "I do not know what I am doing," the queen whispered into his ear. "I have not held anyone since my daughter died. I have forgotten how, but you remind me of her. You have the same courage, the same foolish, beautiful hope." Tears ran down Minyu's face. He did not know what to say, so he simply lifted his arms and hugged her back. They stood there for a long moment, the ancient queen and the young diplomat, holding each other in front of thousands of watching eyes. And in that moment, something shifted. Something that had been broken for 2,000 years began to heal. Finally, the queen released him and turned to face her empire. Her voice was strong again, but there was something new in it, something warm. "This human has done what no weapon could," she declared. "He has reminded me of what we used to be, what we could be again. We were not always conquerors. We were not always destroyers. Once long ago, we were builders. We were healers. We were people who cared about more than just victory." She paused and looked out at her people. Thousands of black eyes stared back at her. "My daughter believed in peace," the queen continued. "She believed that we could be better. She died trying to prove it, and for 2,000 years I have tried to forget her. I have tried to bury her memory under mountains of victory. But this human has brought her back to me. He has shown me that her dream was not foolish. It was brave, and it is time for us to be brave too." She turned back to Minu. "Humanity will not be destroyed," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The sacred moon will not be a place of anger and revenge. Instead, it will become a place of peace, a memorial for what we have lost and what we have found. Humans and will visit it together. We will remember our dead together, and perhaps, in time, we will build something new together." She raised her hand, and a small glowing object appeared in her palm. It was a crystal, shaped like a flower, filled with swirling blue light. "This is the heart of peace," she said. "It has not been used in 10,000 years. It is given to those who have proven that they are worthy of trust, of friendship." She pressed the crystal into Minu's hand. "Take it. Show it to your people. Tell them that the war is over before it began. Tell them that the empire offers not destruction but partnership." Minu looked at the crystal in his hand. It was warm and alive, pulsing with gentle light. He could not believe what was happening. He had come here expecting to die. Instead, he had found something neither species had ever expected. He had found connection. "Thank you," he said. His voice was shaking. "Thank you for giving us a chance. Thank you for listening. Thank you for remembering." Queen smiled. It was a small smile, uncertain and unpracticed, but it was real. "Thank you," she replied, "for reminding me how to feel." The crowd was still in chaos, but it was a different kind of chaos now. Not anger, not confusion, something more like wonder, something more like hope. The warriors looked at each other and did not know what to think. The nobles whispered about what this meant for the empire. The ordinary citizens looked at the strange human who had done the impossible, and they began to understand that the universe was bigger than they had ever imagined. Ran to Minu and hugged him. She was laughing and crying at the same time. "You did it," she said. "You actually did it." Commander approached slowly. She stood before Minu and bowed her head. "I do not understand you," she admitted. "I do not understand how you did what you did, but I know courage when I see it. You have my respect, human." Minu smiled at her. "Thank you, Commander. I hope we can be friends someday." Looked surprised, then very slowly she nodded. "Perhaps," she said, "perhaps we can." That night Minu sent a message to Captain. The words were simple: "We did it. The war is over. We are coming home." On the horizon, the crew erupted in celebration. Captain, the serious man who never smiled, finally smiled. He sent the news to Earth, and soon the whole planet was celebrating. They did not know all the details yet. They did not know about the caves or the arena or the embrace. They only knew that they were safe, that one young diplomat had done the impossible, that humanity would live. And far away on the Queen stood alone in her chambers, looking at an old painting of her daughter. "I think you would have liked him, Lyra," she whispered. "I think you would have been proud." She touched the painting gently, and for the first time in 2,000 years her heart did not feel so heavy. The journey home felt different from the journey out. When they had left Earth 3 weeks ago, the horizon had been a ship full of fear and desperation. Now it was a ship full of wonder and hope. The crew moved through the halls with lighter steps. They smiled at each other. They laughed at jokes that were not very funny. They were alive and they were going home. Minyu spent most of the journey in his room just like before, but now he was not studying. He was remembering. He would take out the photograph of his sister and look at her smiling face, and he would tell her everything that had happened. He knew she could not hear him, but it helped to talk to her anyway. "I wish you could have seen it, Sora," he said quietly. "The Queen was so scary at first, so cold, but underneath all that armor she was just sad, just lonely like me." He smiled at the photograph. "You would have known what to say. You always knew what to say. I just tried to be honest. I tried to be kind. I tried to be what you would have wanted me to be." He put the photograph away and looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere far behind them, there was getting smaller. Somewhere far ahead, Earth was getting larger. And in the space between, everything had changed. Came to visit him on the 5th day. She brought tea and news and her usual worried expression. "The council has been sending messages non-stop," she said, sitting down beside him. "They want to know every detail. They want reports and documents and explanations. Everyone on Earth wants to know how you did it." Minyu sighed. "I do not know how to explain it. I just talked to her. I just told her the truth. I showed her that we are not so different, that we all feel pain, that we all carry grief, that we all need connection." He shrugged. "That does not make for a very exciting report." Laughed softly. "It is the most exciting thing that has ever happened in human history, and you are worried about your report." "I am worried about what happens next," Minyu admitted. "The Queen made a promise, but she is one person. There are millions of who still see us as enemies. Changing their minds will take years, decades, maybe longer." "That is true," agreed. "But it starts somewhere. It starts with one person reaching out to another. It starts with one moment of understanding." She looked at him with warm eyes. "It starts with a diplomat who refused to fight and a queen who remembered how to love." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars drift past. When the horizon finally reached Earth, the whole planet was waiting for them. Ships filled the sky. Crowds filled the streets. Screens showed their approach in every city, every village, every home. Humanity had never been so united. They had faced extinction together, and they had survived together. Now they wanted to celebrate together. Minyu did not want a celebration. He did not feel like a hero. He had just done what he thought was right. But the council insisted, and Captain said it was important for people to see hope in person. So Minyu agreed to a small ceremony. Just a few thousand people. Just a few hours. It turned out to be more than a few thousand people. When Minyu stepped off the ship, he found himself facing a crowd that stretched to the horizon. They were cheering his name. They were holding signs with his face. They were crying and laughing and reaching out to touch him like he was something sacred. President met him at the bottom of the ramp. She was smiling, which was unusual for her stern face. "Minyu," she said, shaking his hand. "On behalf of all humanity, thank you. You have done something no one else could do. You have given us a future." Minyu did not know what to say, so he just bowed politely. "I had a lot of help," he said. From Captain, from everyone on the horizon, and from the Queen herself. She chose to listen. She chose to remember. She chose to hope. I just reminded her that she could." In the weeks that followed, the real work began. Diplomats from Earth traveled to negotiate the peace treaty. Scientists studied the heart of peace that the Queen had given Minyu. Historians documented everything that had happened. And slowly, carefully, two species began to learn about each other. It was not easy. There were misunderstandings and arguments and moments when it seemed like everything might fall apart. Some still hated humans. Some humans still feared the old wounds did not heal overnight. But every day, small connections were made. A human scientist worked with an engineer. A human child sent a message to a child. A human artist painted a picture of heroes. A poet wrote a song about human courage. The sacred moon became what the Queen had promised. A memorial. A place of peace. Humans and built it together, side by side. They planted gardens and raised monuments and wrote the names of everyone they had lost. Not enemies against enemies, just people remembering. Published her research on human relations 6 months after their return. It was a scientific study of how two completely different species could find common ground, but at the heart of it was a simple truth: empathy transcended biology, understanding transcended language, love transcended even the darkness of space. She dedicated her work to Sara, the sister of a diplomat who reminded a queen how to feel. Minyu received a private transmission from Queen on the anniversary of their meeting. He was alone in his apartment, looking at the stars, when her face appeared on his screen. She looked different now, not softer exactly, but lighter, like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Her black eyes still held centuries of memory, but there was something new in them too, something that might have been peace. "1 year ago," the queen said, "you walked into my throne room and changed everything. I wanted to destroy your species. Now I am building a future with them. I still do not understand how you did it." Minyu smiled. "I did not do anything special. I just believed that you were more than what you showed the world. I believed that underneath all that power and anger, there was someone who wanted to be understood, someone who was tired of being alone." The queen was quiet for a moment. Then she did something that still surprised Minyu, even after everything they had been through. She smiled. "I sent you something," she said. "A gift. It should arrive today." A few hours later, a small package arrived at Minyu's apartment. Inside was a single image printed on strange paper. It showed a flower, delicate and blue, growing from rocky soil. Behind it, stars filled the sky. The message with the image was simple: "This flower grows on the sacred moon now. It blooms once every century. In my language, it is called the one who reminded me how to feel. I planted it myself." Below that, in careful human handwriting that must have taken hours to learn, the queen had written, "I do not regret this, human. Neither should you." Minyu held the image for a long time. Then he walked to the shelf where he kept his sister's photograph and placed the flower beside it. Two images, two people he had loved in different ways, both of them far away now, but neither of them forgotten. He stepped back and looked at them together. Sara, with her bright smile and curious eyes, the flower with its fragile petals and patient growth. "We did something good, Sara," he said softly. "We built a bridge between the stars. You would have loved it." Outside his window, the night sky was full of stars. Somewhere among them, a queen was looking up at the same sky. Somewhere among them, humans and were working side by side. Somewhere among them, the future was being written. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had not dominated or destroyed or forced their will upon others. Instead, they had done something much harder and much more important. They had connected, they had understood, they had healed. And maybe, Minyu thought, that was what humanity was always meant to do: not to be the strongest, not to be the most powerful, but to be the ones who reached out, the ones who refused to give up on others, the ones who believed, even in the darkest moments, that love was stronger than fear. He looked at the stars one more time. Then he smiled, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new problems to solve, new bridges to build, but tonight he would rest. Tonight he would dream of a future where no one was alone. And somewhere across the universe, watching the same stars, Queen did the same.